for a crime he never committed. People talk about freedom in America. We talk about racial activity in America. Does this fall in line? I think it meets the criteria. But at the end of the day, we just want to free Jon-Adrian. 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 Let's talk about a little bit more why we are here. We are joined by the family, Maria Velazquez, who I have known for quite some time. 1199 organizer and retiree, who's a friend of the family. And for those of you who don't know Jon-Adrian Velazquez, let me tell you a little bit about him. He was born on November 11th, 1976. He's the only child, and his father, ironically, was a police officer for Amtrak. As stated, his mother was a retired organizer for 1199 SEIU. And as all of us who have known John, he was a very friendly child growing up and very athletic. Loved playing sports such as baseball, soccer, and winning in a lot of these competitions in Harlem. He attended private school and he was brought up. And as he went into the parochial system, he has a very religious background. John was baptized, had his Holy Communion done, and his confirmation in his family, always attended church on Sundays. He was a family man, and he was an altar boy. But more importantly, he was a law-abiding citizen. On February 2nd, 1998, Jon-Adrian Velazquez was wrongly convicted for the murder of a retired police officer. And he is now serving 25 years to life. He has always proclaimed his innocence. His alibi was being on the telephone with his mother, which was ignored and disrespected, and both of them took a lie detector and passed with flying colors. There were 4 witnesses since this time that's recanted their story and changed their testimony that they gave at trial. There is no DNA evidence, against Mr. Velazquez. The sad thing about it, there's absolutely no connection between Mr. Velazquez and the admitted co-perpetrator of the crime. And during the jury, there was a seated jury who was identified as the shooter during Mr. Velazquez's trial. Yet, he was still voted and found guilty. And he's continued to say that he is innocent. Yes, there were mistakes made, but we in government have a responsibility to understand when we make an error, we should fix that error as opposed to compounding the error with more lies to protect our jobs. I was told a long time ago, if you're worried about losing your job, you've already lost your job. And it's clearly in the DA's office, they were worried about losing their jobs, so they continue to put more lies on top of lies on top of lies to keep Adrian locked up. The sad thing, if you hear the description of the shooters, for those of you looking at Adrian here, fair-skinned Hispanic young man with a low haircut. The description of the perpetrator, dark-skinned black man with dreads. I don't see that in that picture. So I don't understand how they can ignore the evidence that was presented to them at that time, let alone failing to investigate evidence of a gentleman by the name of Mufasa, who was identified by law enforcement for being the multiple independent shooter on a number of crimes, and the person believed to be the person responsible for officer's death. At this time, Jon-Adrian was 21 years of age. Being locked up left him alone, not to be locked up, but he was a brand new father starting a family. He left a newborn as well as a child that was being born inside the womb. So you just destroyed, the system just destroyed 2 young men. You deprived 2 young boys of being with their dad, growing up without a father. Why? Because you was worried about protecting your job as opposed to protecting the law and making sure that justice was served. There's a weird thing about justice and criminal justice. because we got a system called criminal justice. It seems like you're protecting the criminal. We should be having some civilian justice. We should kind of change the name, because every time there's a crime committed, civilians are looking for justice. The criminal don't need justice. The criminal needs to be held accountable for committing the crime. So something's wrong with the way we talk about here and how we word things here in America. But today, 20 years, Brother Jon-Adrian's been locked up. And tell you something about how great this young man was before he went in. He took his same character for being in the society and put it into the jail system. While being incarcerated for the past 20 years, Jon-Adrian has accumulated 2 degrees. He has his associate's degree and he has his bachelor's degree, and he was cum laude from Hudson Wink. So that tells you a little bit about his character, his commitment to human beings, while he got his degree from Mercy College, sustaining a 4.0 grade point average. So it tells you something about this individual. And currently, he runs the GED college program at Sing Sing Correctional Facility. He was also elected president of the Inmate Liaison Committee, where Latinos United resolve issues for inmate populations. So I know he gets that because Dad was out here serving along, and as a union baby, that's what union babies do. We protect our people. We fight for rights. We do the right thing. We don't break the law, we help and make the law. And that's what we do. So there are several reasons why we stand here today calling on Brother Jon-Adrian Velazquez's conviction to be vacated. Why? Because while sitting up there for 25 years and losing 19 years of his life as a 21-year-old and being convicted of the second-degree murder, we want to make sure he gets back home to be with his family. We want to make sure he come back and be that son that he always was. We want him to come back home and unite with his 2 boys who who was in a situation of not having to grow up with a dad. But more importantly, we want him to return back home because the rules and evidence have changed. We have learned today that tomorrow there will be a hearing in Manhattan Court due to the fact that there's some newly found evidence that has been released to the defense attorneys. We've learned, you heard me speak about the identification of the perpetrator, which law enforcement knew most likely was the shooter. But in their haste to hold someone accountable, they decided to ignore that information. Well, it has resurfaced. And now we know that Jon-Adrian was not the shooter. So we're calling on the justice system to do the right thing. You don't have a choice to talk about, let's debate this for 4 or 5 months or another year. This young man has been locked up for over 15 years, 20 years he's been locked up. And if evidence can exonerate him 20 years ago that was hidden, then it should be revealed today and he should be exonerated and released by Monday morning.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
People in the justice system, you have a responsibility. DA's office has a responsibility. We've had issues with the criminal justice system, especially when it comes to black in America, when it comes to black being in New York. We can't hide from it because it's our reality. But the only way we're able to correct is to have the real conversation so we can correct it. So when you see a brother like Jon-Adrian getting locked up for no reason, when we talk about the Central Park 5, those teenagers who got locked up for no reason, when we talk about the injustices of this country for no reason, pretty much just for profit and just because prejudice and hatred still exists in America, well, we got to have real conversations to do away with it. Now, the justice system has an opportunity to build the trust of the American people. They have the opportunity to build the trust of New Yorkers. They have the time and the energy to build the trust of a family who's been waiting for their son to come home and a father that needs to come return back to their family. We're asking, we're calling, we're demanding on the DA to do the right thing and exonerate Jon-Adrian Velazquez by Monday morning. At this point, before I call up some of the people that are here, we want to make sure that we all recognize and know that there's a family who has been struggling for the last couple of decades, who we've been holding in prayer for the last couple of decades. We've been supporting, and they've been enduring, and I got to tell you, when you go through something doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I want you all to put your hands for the strength and the matriarch of the Velazquez family, Sister Maria Velazquez.
Go Maria.
I just want to thank everybody for being here today. I want to thank all the people that have been with us through the 20 years, supporting us and being at court and at conferences, being my support whenever I've needed it. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because it has meant so much to me, because I'm a single mother and Jon-Adrian is my only child. So when he was taken from me, I was left with 2 small grandchildren that I helped to raise. And this is the only family that he has, is his 2 children and myself. And trust me, we have endured a lot of pain and we've gone through a lot of struggles through the years. So you being here with me today, for many years, I see you in the crowd. And if you're not here, it's because you're gonna be there tomorrow at court. And if you're not there tomorrow, you're with me in spirit from all over the world, from England, from Canada, from Kansas, from Texas, all over the states. People are supporting this cause. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it means so much to me and it means so much to my son. And 20 years, going on 20 years of a wrongful conviction, enough is enough.
That's right.
Basta ya. Es suficiente la libertad. Queremos la libertad para Jon-Adrian Velazquez. We want freedom for Jon-Adrian Velazquez. Enough is enough. We have suffered enough. He needs to come home. He's an educated individual. He has a lot to offer, and he would offer so much to this community, to the United States, and to all the people. He's a giving person, a loving person. Bring him home so he can get to work. Thank you.
Free Jon-Adrian! 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 So I'm gonna ask you all to forgive me, because I was trying to practice my Spanish. I kept saying Andre, but Brother Adrian, forgive me. You know, I know I'm a spiritual kind of guy, and I know many of us are. And sometimes we don't know why things happen. And I would never wish anyone to be locked up for any amount of time. But I'm praying that on Monday morning, the brother Jon-Adrian is back home with his family, and that he's done good work up in the prison system, and he saved somebody else's life while he was up there. And that this injustice wasn't just in vain, that another soul got lost up in the justice system, or the criminal justice system, or as we say, the incarcerated system. Well, we have a few people here to join us to speak today. I'd like to bring up from the Foundation for Justice, Jeff Descovich. Thank you, Brother Jeff. Thank you.
My name's Jeff Descovich, and I'm the founder of the Jeffrey Descovich Foundation for Justice, which exonerates the wrongfully convicted as well as works for policy changes designed to prevent wrongful convictions in the first place. My motivation comes from a first-hand experience. I spent 16 years in prison in New York State, from age 17 to 32, wrongfully imprisoned for a murder and rape which I did not commit, which I was exonerated of through DNA evidence 10 years ago. The Descovich Foundation has always supported J.J. Velazquez based upon his innocence. Our belief in his innocence emanates from a number of factors. Quickly, just that several people have recanted, that an alternative suspect was identified from the very beginning as being an individual by the name of Mustafa, that individual wore dreads, that JJ never had dreads, that 2 civilian witnesses came forward saying that Mustafa confessed to them. Still, that hasn't been enough to exonerate him, which from any objective point of view should have been. This case should have been over a long time ago. The average length of wrongful imprisonment is 14 years. Why is that? Well, for one thing, the district attorney's office, the prosecutors, they never want to admit the error. they drag things out as long as possible. That was the case in my situation. I lost 7 appeals. I was inside for 16 years. Looking back in hindsight, when people analyze my case, they see all the red flags and they wonder, how did the injustice go on for so long when it was so clear? But the people that was in position to fix it from the beginning didn't want to do that. The district attorney's office didn't want to do that. It's the same thing in JJ's case. And the unfortunate thing is that in far too many of these situations, the courts rubber stamp the injustice that the prosecutor's office takes. It was unjust that JJ wasn't allowed to have an evidentiary hearing when the last time he was in court to present his new evidence. I don't see how the appellate division denying his request to simply have a hearing when he challenged that ruling, when that was denied. I don't see how that was consistent with what was supposed to be the bedrock principle of the justice system, which is that the guilty are punished and the innocent go free. Now there's yet newer evidence that's being presented, and once again the DA's office wants to delay. I'm hoping that this time there can be a different response from the court. I'm hoping that they're not going to grant a continuance. The DA's office, they're familiar with the case. What it is that they want to drag it out as long as we can, as long as they can. Let's get as much time out of him as we can. And if we can just wear him down and just keep this conviction going as long as we can, you know, maybe at the end of the day, maybe we can keep getting the court to sign off. Maybe they'll think that there's something to our position. But I'm hoping that finally, somehow, some way, this can just come to an end, because often the key in overturning a wrongful conviction is not even so much whether or not you have the facts or the law. Yes, you need that, but even if you have that, the most important thing is whether or not the judges are going to give an objective hearing to those facts and to those evidence, and too many times that's lacking. And that's why a rally like tonight, that's why the press coverage, that's why having people come out, that's why high-profile people such as Councilman King and other profile individuals here with me today, from Sharon Salam to other exonerees and other just everyday citizens concerned for justice. That's why events like this are necessary to supplement the fighting that goes on in the court system, because too many times what goes on outside the courtroom is just as important as what goes on in it, because if the spotlight's not on, it's that much easier to sweep injustices under the rug. And with that, I want to thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Telling it like it is. Thank you for coming back out and working and doing something to improve the lives, so no one has to live what you have to go through. And that's, again, it goes back to a system of people being held accountable. You hold civilians accountable out on the street, so we must hold the system accountable when they don't get it right. So I say to each and every one of us who are standing out here today, at any given moment when things like this happen, call your elected officials, call the DA's office, write letters. That's the only way they know what's going on, that people paying attention. And I say that because while we're standing out here, people are obliviously just walking back and forth, going shopping like there's nothing else going on. I respect everyone who said, let me stop and hear what's going on. Because one day, it could be your son, it could be your daughter, and you'll be out there asking for support. So don't just ignore when you see crowds of people speaking up and standing up for justice. With that all being said, I'd like to bring up Brother Carlton Baum from the Discovery for Justice.
I stand before you as a retired New York City detective. And as you see the shirt I'm wearing, right, it shows a person in jail blindfolded, because no one here knows about the blindfold law. This gentleman is a victim, and he along with millions of others, have fallen victim to the blindfold law. All right, the blindfold law, right, is CPL CPL 240, which gives the district attorney the right to withhold evidence that can prove a person's innocent. This has been going on for years. As a retired New York City detective working in Manhattan, I know the game that is being played. The game that is being played is to withhold evidence. The district attorney, right, withholds evidence that can prove a person's innocence. 98% of all cases, 98% in New York State of all cases is plea bargain. Why? Because it takes about 2.5 to 3 years for a case to come to court. During that time, the person is in jail, while the district attorney gets the right for almost 3 years to gather their evidence against the accused. That's not right. That's not justice. So with my organization, what we're trying to do is change the law. CPL 240, we're trying to change it and enact CPL 245, which states that when a person is arrested, within 15 days, all of the evidence that the district attorney has, turn it over to the defense. And all the evidence that the defense have, turn it over to the district attorney. That way, we can have justice. Because this way, we're not having the district attorney with this amount of evidence and the accused with none. It's not fair. What we need to do, Cy Vance is coming up for election. What we need to do is we need to vote him out.
That's right.
Ken Thompson in Brooklyn. Ken Thompson heard our organization. And Ken Thompson started his own investigation, and now you see close to 25 people have been exonerated. We're talking to, right now in the Bronx, we're talking to the Bronx DA, Darcel Clark, who is listening. Unfortunately in Staten Island, and unfortunately in Queens, and unfortunately in Manhattan, the district attorneys don't want to listen to us. Deskovich did 20-something years already. He knows what we're talking about. Evidence was withheld against him, which he got later on that exonerated him. What we need to do, people, is no one, and I'm about to stop, but no one in your off time, you need to go into these courts and see what's going on. No one in their free time goes into court and sit down. It's open to the public. The only time you go is when a loved one is locked up. And you know what? You go in there blindfolded, like how my shirt says. You know, let's stand behind this man. I'm here telling you as a retired detective, that game has been going on for years. The detectives gives the district attorney all the evidence, and the district attorney withholds it until the first witness takes the stand. 1 hour until the first witness takes the stand. That's when the district attorney hands over the evidence. So let's change this law. Let's vote Cy Vance out. If he doesn't want to do what Ken Thompson and what Darcel Clark is trying to do in the Bronx, right, we need to vote him out.
Good. All right, thank you. Free Jon-Adrian! 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 Free. Brother Chuck, I want to thank you for bringing the rain.
You got it, brother.
And holding the rain. Thank you, most Christ.
And I back you up, brother, because you know, at times you like the only one that comes out here. You know, so I back you up wherever you go. And we're from the Bronx. Originally, I'm from Harlem, but that's my councilman.
Well, I appreciate that, and he did make. I submitted a piece of legislation, a resolution repealing 430 and incorporated with a new piece of would have free open discovery. As soon as someone's locked up, you get a week to release the information that you have. I mean, for those of us who watch NBC, Law and Order, we know what happens, and a lot of that stuff is true. They just give us how they do it. But at the end of the day, if the system is wrong, they won't call it out. They'll defend it, and if they get thrown again, what did I say earlier? If you're worrying about losing your job, you've already lost your job. And that's what they do. They're worrying about losing their jobs, and they'll do anything to the society to make sure that they keep their jobs. That all being said, I want to bring up another brother who was treated unfairly, who was found guilty, and has lost a large chunk of his life just because the system couldn't figure out the truth, but they just wanted their own justice. I want to bring up to the mic, Brother Lorenzo Johnson.
I'm here today to support Ms. Velazquez, and John Velazquez is one of many innocent prisoners that suffer from the injustice system. 3 weeks ago, I sat in a prison cell serving a natural life sentence, and I'm released for the second time. And what me and John Velazquez have in common is for 18.5 years, the prosecution in my case withheld evidence of my innocence. So, my duty in life now is to help other innocent prisoners get out of prison. And, you know, no innocent prisoner should be in prison for something they didn't do. Any evidence of innocence should be turned over immediately. And when a prosecution withheld evidence and let you go, this man been in prison for 20 years. So all the process they went through and they filed, they saw something in there that could have cleared them. Like Jeffrey Deskovich said, the average innocent prison spends between 13.5 to 15 years in prisons. That's the ones that's fortunate to get released. Now, you know, in these situations, it's more than one victim. She's a victim. His whole family's a victim. The person who was labeled the victim, their family's the victim. So nobody wins here. It's total injustice all the way around the board. And the longer he sits in prison, it's more injustice to him and his family. And I come to support her, and I'll be there for you whenever you need me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Lorenzo.
Give it up for Brother Lorenzo. I know there's a few other brothers here who are in that same boat that you guys on. You just mentioned their names, those who are here.
Anthony DePippo.
I did 20 years myself, and every time I get an opportunity to stand for injustice, victim by the system, I'm there. I believe in J.J. Velazquez. He's actually innocent. The prosecution, in this case, I believe, jumping the gun. 3 hours after we filed the motion, they came out with a statement shooting it down. And I don't think that's reasonable diligence or fairness on the part of this woman, on the part of our movement, and on the part of J.J. Velazquez. So with that, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you, brother. Yes.
Keon Katibi, 9.5 years in New York State. I did wrongfully convicted before I was exonerated. Today, I'm also a licensed attorney in New York State. Today, I'm also Jon-Adrian Velazquez. And, you know, I would like to see an honest opinion come out about this man's claims. I stand by him. He's a brother. He's in jail right now. I'd like to see him out. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
You know, just want to add a comment. You know, for the last 5 years, group I'm part of, it can happen to you, working in tandem with Discovery for Justice and many other advocates, advocacy groups, the Innocence Project, etc. You know, we've been trying to get the bill passed, which would create a commission on prosecutor conduct, an independent body which would have the ability to investigate allegations of prosecutorial misconduct and hold the prosecutors accountable. Right now, there is nothing. And every year at the end of the session, we have all the sponsors, we have bipartisan support, and then without fail, the prosecutors start calling all the elected officials, all the bill sponsors, and then we can never get a vote. You know, we need to get this commission passed. We need more local resolutions passed, urging the legislators to pass the bill. We need that bill passed because it's in cases like JJ's case. You know, how can you withhold evidence of innocence and still be fighting the case at the same time? That doesn't make sense. It's not a good faith error. And the fact that nobody has been accountable and that no one is going to be accountable, just like there was nobody accountable in my case, nobody's accountable in Keon's or Anthony's case, that's a travesty in and of itself. So there's nothing in place right now with the system as currently constructed to hold prosecutors who go rogue, who go outside the law accountable. Yet, there's never any kind of hesitation to hold a civilian accountable, to have an arrest made, to prosecute. Let's throw in prison for anything and everything. Let's even pass laws real quick to do that if a civilian breaks the law. But the prosecutors are always above the law and it never applies to them. So we need this double standard to be eliminated.
Thank you. Thank you. Mom.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment now to introduce my sister here. Last year, we walked from Harlem to Albany, 150 miles, to get legislation passed for wrongful conviction. And we presently have a bill that's not moving, and we'd like it to be moved, and I'd like for her to speak. She's also the mother of Yusuf Salam. This is Sharon Salam of the Central Park 5.
Give it up, Mom. Come on.
Well, I am pleased that you all came out here in the rain and you stayed to hear what had to be said. But we need more people like you coming out and standing in support of people who are wrongfully convicted and people who are arrested, because we don't know they've been wrongfully convicted until they've been found convicted. And then the fight starts. Right now, while we are holding this meeting, there may have been 1, 2, 3, 10, we don't know how many people who've been arrested, who may have been wrongfully arrested, accused, and convicted the same way as my son. We have to solve this problem because it's a major problem that affects our country, our city, our state. The more innocent people are arrested and put in jail, the less we have of men, women, and children who are supporting our cities and becoming functional people in our communities. We need the innocent out of jail. Now, I am sure that in the statistics that's held in our state and city government and in the United States of America, they know how many of these people there are. It's tens of thousands of them. When you look at the laws and they say 3 strikes and you're out, what does that mean? It means crime is down. But they want people to fill these jails because jail labor is a big business. And while you're working, it doesn't matter if you're innocent or guilty. Once you've been found guilty, you're behind bars. And unfortunately, there are a lot of organizations that work on behalf of those people who are wrongfully convicted. But it's so many of them that you have to pick and choose which one you're going to help. Which ones you're going to sacrifice. You can't help them all because it's only a few agencies doing it. It's limited funds. It's not that much money to pay to have your DNA tested. It was just a man just recently from our vice president's state, and all he wanted to do before they killed him was to have his DNA tested. And the vice president refused. That man is dead today. He's dead because he claimed he was innocent. And the system did not want to let him go. Right now, as I look out and I see these children, my son was just 15 when it happened to him, and there were others who were 14, 15, and 16 when this happened. It could happen to any one of you, anytime, day or night. Don't be the last one standing as people pass you by. Get with people who are going to fight with you because this issue needs to be resolved. There are so many groups in your community. As you can see, I'm wearing our Justice for the Wrongfully Incarcerated shirt. And that's a group that works on behalf of issues and concerns for the wrongfully incarcerated. But to get my help, you have to already be out and proven innocent. Or you have to help us develop legislation that works on behalf of that population. But there are organizations like Jeff's organizations and so many others. I'm looking at a sister over here who has a group. She has an organization. What is the name of that group? Absolutely Innocent. We just don't have the funds to do the job that needs to be done. And the reason is because just like they're doing right now with our president and his family, and they claim they're following the money. When you follow the money to the prison industrial complex, you can see why they don't want to resolve this issue. Because for every prisoner they put in jail, there's money to be made. Don't let your son or daughter become the next dollar bill. Fight for justice. Fight now.
All right. Free Jon-Adrian! 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 So before we wrap up today's rally and call for justice and the freedom of Jon-Adrian Velazquez. You heard Mama Salam talk about the jail system. Let me give you a quick piece of education what just went down in the City Council in November. In November of 2016 in the City Council, we passed a resolution calling on Congress to amend the United States Constitution. Why? Because the 3/5 clause in the Constitution still exists. And for those of you who don't know what the 3/5 clause in the